Imagine the world in the middle of the 18th century. The year is 1755. The United States does not exist. George Washington is a 23-year-old militia officer fighting in the wilderness of North America. Napoleon Bonaparte will not be born for another 14 years. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is not even an infant yet. He will be born the following winter. Europe is governed by monarchs whose power feels absolute, divine, and unshakable. Yet, in the narrow alleyways of Saint-Gervais in Geneva, Switzerland, a different kind of revolution is brewing. Saint-Gervais was the neighborhood of artisans, engravers, cabinet makers, and horologists, a place where the air smelled of machine oil, wood shavings, and charcoal fire. In this neighborhood, time was not measured by the rise and fall of empires, but by the microscopic interaction of brass wheels, steel pinions, and hand-carved escapements. In September 1755, a 24-year-old master watchmaker named Jean-Marc Vacheron sat at his wooden workbench. To Vacheron, watchmaking was not merely a trade. It was an attempt to capture the mathematical order of the cosmos inside a silver pocket case. On September 17th, 1755, Jean-Marc Vacheron dipped a quill into ink and signed a legal contract taking on his first apprentice, Esaïe Chetetel. That single sheet of yellowed parchment still exists in the company archives. It is the birth certificate of Vacheron Constantin. When Jean-Marc signed that paper, he was starting a clock that would never stop ticking. Over the next 270 years, human civilization would experience the French Revolution, the rise and fall of Napoleon, 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and the Digital Revolution. Thousands of watch companies would form, flourish, and go extinct. But from September 17th, 1755, to this very second, the workshop founded by Jean-Marc Vacheron has never closed its doors. It holds a record unmatched in luxury horology. The world's oldest watch manufacturer in continuous, unbroken operation. The early decades of Jean-Marc Vacheron's workshop were defined by a relentless pursuit of hand craftsmanship. In 1770, just 15 years after opening his doors, Vacheron achieved a monumental milestone by creating his workshop's very first horological complication. Vacheron's early work laid the foundation for mastering high horology. In 1779, Jean-Marc introduced another aesthetic breakthrough: the world's first engine-turned dials, created using the art of guilloche. By using precision, hand-operated rose engine lathes to carve geometric patterns directly into silver and gold dials, Vacheron transformed watch faces from plain tools into 3-dimensional works of art. By 1785, Jean-Marc passed the firm to his son, Abraham Vacheron. It was a perilous era to run a luxury business. Across the border, the French Revolution erupted in 1789. By 1798, French revolutionary forces annexed Geneva. The market for aristocratic luxury goods collapsed overnight. Monarchs and nobles, who had been the primary patrons of fine Swiss watchmaking, lost their wealth and their lives. Abraham Vacheron maneuvered the workshop through political chaos, pivoting toward discreet, reliable pocket watches that could survive turbulent times. In 1810, Abraham's son and Jean-Marc's grandson, Jacques Barthélemy Vacheron, took control. Jacques Barthélemy was a horological prodigy. Under his leadership, the firm began crafting complex musical pocket watches that played melodies on demand, along with minute repeaters. watches that could chime the exact hours and minutes using tiny internal hammers and gongs. Jacques Barthélemy realized that if the family firm was to thrive, Geneva alone was not enough. He personally exported watches to France and Italy, catching the eye of European nobility. But Jacques Barthélemy was a bench watchmaker at heart. He loved tuning escapements over a microscope, but hated the relentless travel and accounting required to build a global brand. He needed a partner, a strategist who shared his vision but possessed a master salesman's soul. In 1819, Jacques Barthélemy found that partner in François Constantin. François Constantin was a businessman of extraordinary charisma and energy. Born in Geneva, Constantin had spent years traveling across Europe as a merchant, building an unmatched network of contacts among aristocrats and bankers. When Vacheron and Constantin joined forces, they officially renamed the firm Vacheron and Constantin. The dynamic between the two men was immediate and transformative. Jacques Barthélemy stayed in Geneva running the workshop, while François Constantin hit the road in horse-drawn carriages and sailing ships, taking Swiss timepieces to uncharted luxury markets. On July 5, 1819, while staying at an inn in Turin, Italy, after a sales journey, François Constantin wrote a letter back to Jacques Barthélemy in Geneva. Toward the end of the letter, Constantin penned a sentence in French that defined the company's philosophy forever. Do better if possible, and that is always possible. It was an operational mandate. It meant that no matter how accurate a watch was, it could be made more accurate. No matter how thin a movement was, it could be made thinner. That single line became the eternal motto of Vacheron Constantin. Fueled by Constantine's energy, the brand expanded into North America, South America, and Russia. Yet as demand grew, the company faced a manufacturing bottleneck. In the early 1800s, watch parts were custom filed by hand. If a gear broke, a watchmaker had to carve a new one from scratch. Scaling production without losing quality was nearly impossible. To solve this problem, Vacheron Constantin made a hire in 1833 that permanently changed Swiss watchmaking. They hired a brilliant mechanical engineer named Georges-Auguste Lachaud. Lachaud realized that if Swiss watchmaking was to survive industrialization, it had to move away from trial and error filing. In 1839, Lachaud invented a revolutionary machine known as the pantograph. The pantograph traced a large master template and simultaneously milled out identical, microscopic watch components, bridges, plates, and gear wheels, with sub-millimeter mathematical precision. For the first time in history, watch components became interchangeable. In 1844, the Art Society of Geneva awarded Lachaud the gold medal for his pantograph. In 1880, the company officially registered its famous emblem, the Maltese Cross. The symbol was inspired by a tiny mechanical component mounted on top of the mainspring barrel cover. This cross-shaped gear governed tension inside the barrel to keep power delivery smooth. Because this small component ensured steady, perfect timekeeping, Vacheron Constantin adopted its shape as their official trademark. In 1887, Peter Carl Fabergé built the third imperial Easter egg for Tsar Alexander III, hiding a lady's Vacheron Constantin gold watch inside. In 1906, they opened their first standalone boutique on the Quai de Lille in downtown Geneva, a location still serving clients today. As humanity entered the 20th century, time moved from the pocket to the wrist. During the Roaring Twenties, drivers loved early motor cars, but checking a wristwatch while holding a vibrating steering wheel was awkward. In 1921, Vacheron Constantin created a cushion-shaped watch crafted for American drivers. The dial was rotated 45 degrees counterclockwise, with the crown at the top right corner, allowing drivers to check the time without taking their hands off the wheel. Today, that model lives on as the Historiques American 1921. Following World War II, Vacheron Constantin entered a golden era of ultra-thin watchmaking. In 1943, they created the Reference 4261, an ultra-thin minute repeater whose movement was just 3.2 millimeters thick. Then came 1955, the brand's 200th anniversary. To celebrate, Vacheron Constantin unveiled the caliber 1003. Containing 117 components, its total thickness was a mind-boggling 1.64 millimeters, setting the record as the thinnest manual wind mechanical movement ever created. By the 1970s, the Swiss watch industry was hit by the Quartz crisis. Japanese battery-powered quartz watches were cheap and hyper-accurate, pushing hundreds of traditional Swiss watch companies into bankruptcy. Vacheron Constantin responded in 1977 by celebrating its 222nd anniversary with a revolutionary steel luxury sports watch, the Vacheron Constantin 222. Designed by Jörg Heisek, the 222 featured a tonneau case, a Maltese cross-inspired bezel, and an integrated steel bracelet. The 222 laid the design foundation for the Overseas collection, launched in 1996. Today, the Overseas is one of the world's most coveted luxury sports timepieces. In 1996, Vacheron Constantin joined the Richemont Group. In 2004, the brand opened its state-of-the-art headquarters in Plain-les-Ouates, Geneva, designed in the shape of a half Maltese cross. Watch collectors group Vacheron Constantin into the Holy Trinity of Swiss watchmaking, alongside Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet. Patek Philippe represents secondary market prestige, and Audemars Piguet represents avant-garde sports design. Vacheron Constantin is revered as the connoisseur's choice, the choice for purists who value quiet elegance, unbroken heritage, and uncompromised artistic hand finishing. In 2005, for its 250th anniversary, Vacheron Constantin created the Tour de Lille, a double-sided wristwatch featuring 16 complications. 10 years later, in September 2015, for its 261st anniversary, the Les Cabinotiers department unveiled the Reference 57260. In 2024, Vacheron Constantin built the most complicated watch ever built, the Berkeley Grand Complication, featuring 2,877 parts, 63 complications, and the world's first mechanical Chinese perpetual calendar. In an era of disposable technology, holding a Vacheron Constantin timepiece means connecting directly to 270 years of uninterrupted human craftsmanship. In their Plain-les-Ouates headquarters, Vacheron Constantin pledges to restore and repair any watch made by the brand since 1755. If a component inside a 2-century-old watch is broken, watchmakers use archival blueprints to hand-forge a brand-new part. They do not merely build watches to tell time. They build timepieces to remind us of what time means. That true greatness takes patience, craftsmanship is art, and it is always possible to do better. If you enjoyed this deep dive into watchmaking history, hit that like button and subscribe for more horological documentaries. Thanks for watching.